We will be in John chapter 11. With Easter coming up, we're jumping ahead in the Gospel of John so that we can be to the Easter text on Easter Sunday. One thing I did intentionally, because I just was running out of time with everything else this week, is I didn't put any verses in for the sermon. So this one is on purpose, just so everybody knows. So if you want to follow along, we'll read through the message or through the text as we talk about it as well. See, John 11 tells us of the end of Jesus' public ministry. And it tells us the greatest of the signs and wonders that John has curated and recorded. And as I've studied this passage, there's been a song that's been running through my head. And it's an old Southern gospel song by a group called Greater Vision. And I'm going to be really impressed if there's anyone else in the room or even online that knows who Greater Vision is. Anybody? That's right. That's my level of dorkdom, guys. We were talking about this some last night at trivia night. I am a multi-level dork. All right. I can speak dweeb in multiple languages. That's it. So it's a song where they take some liberties with the story of the four men that carried the paralytic on the mat, and they were so desperate to get to see Jesus, they tore the roof off the house and lowered him down. And when I say take liberties, it's like one of those based on a true story movies where they keep the meat of the story, but they change some of the details. Like, for example, if there was a biopic coming out about me, I would, of course, be played by someone suave and debonair like Brad Pitt or Tom Holland. Obviously. I mean, it might be that Jack Black is a little more appropriate, but, they take some liberties. And, of course, there's not an actress alive who is worthy of playing my wife. So I'm going to make sure she watches this video later. You can all tell her I said that, so I make sure I get plenty of husband points for that. So the song, when the song starts, we meet first we meet three friends, not three friends, that had all been healed by Jesus. One of them carrying a corner was a blind man who had received a sight. You had a deaf man who was now able to hear. You had a leper that had been cured, but they all doubted. I mean, yeah, Jesus did these things, but could he really help their friend? I mean, that seems like a step too far. And how often do we look back at our past and see all the things that God has done and yet wonder, Lord, will you come through in this moment? And these friends, they represent John's audience that he's writing to in the gospel. I mean, they had seen signs and wonders, and how were they going to respond? They saw miracles, they saw healings, and Jesus was asking them to believe in still greater things. And how were they going to respond? And so this sermon, I want to introduce you to the fourth man carrying the mat in this based on a true story song. And we see in John chapter 11, verse 1, that a man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. And these are people we've met in other Bible stories. If you've been to church for a while, you probably recognize the names and might even know the stories. And as humans, we have this amazing ability to make the amazing mundane. I mean, I don't stare very often at the awe-inspiring beauty of my wife because it's become so commonplace to me. Again, make sure you tell her I've said these things. But there are moments where I'm just stunned again, like, why did you pick me? You're just so incredible. And so if you're familiar with these stories, if you're familiar with these characters, try to see it with fresh eyes this morning. Be amazed again by this story that we're told, that this is the Mary who later poured the expensive perfume on the Lord's feet and wiped them with her hair, and her brother Lazarus was sick. In verse 3, so the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. And what a normal, natural thing to do. We need help. We turn to God. I mean, we view troubles, trials, and sickness in our life as unwelcome intruders. And these obstacles, in our view, should be removed as quickly and painlessly as possible. So, of course, we ask the one who is all-powerful with an expectation, with the hope that he's going to remove them quickly and painlessly. And in verse 4, we see, but when Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. realize you will encounter no situation in your life in which God cannot be glorified. It doesn't matter if it's an impossible boss, or a loveless marriage, or a crushing tuition bill, or a dysfunctional family. God can be and will be glorified in every situation. But is that the perspective we live in? For most of us, it's not our default, no matter the situation. We need someone to remind us, God, your will be done. We need to ask, no matter the situation, God, how can we glorify you in this? How are you going to receive glory? Because our normal response is to ask, what is the fastest and most painless way out of this situation? And one part of Christian maturity is learning to look at a situation and knowing that no matter what you face it so that God can be glorified, that good will come to you through it, and the world will be invited to follow Jesus through you. Reject the temptation to pit the two against each other. Reject to pit the idea of God's immediate response or his delayed response as working against each other, because God's glory is chiefly displayed through his bottomless love for his people. Not just his in this moment love, God, what are you doing for me right now? But even through his love when he's showing patience and helping us through the hard time. In verse 5, so although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. We had a human plan, well conceived and thought out. Tell Jesus, tell God, he will help. Because we want it our way, and we want it now. And how often do we do this? Where we have a problem, we jump straight to a solution, and that's perfectly normal. That's life. But how do we handle it when our plan fails? When God chooses to do it differently, when God chooses to wait a few days before answering? And here is that question again from John that he is asking over and over in his gospel. Will you accept Jesus as he is, who he is, including his wisdom and his way to do things, especially when we disagree? Because this story is going to teach us two things about God's delays. The first is that they're inevitable, because we are not God, and we cannot comprehend just how complicated everything is. Though we normally walk through life with the assumption that we have all the information that we need to make the best decision. Especially in a day like today where I can pull up reviews and I can pull up YouTube videos and God, I have this important decision to make, so let me get the opinion of so many others. I'm reminded of God asking Job, do you know how nature works? Did you hang the stars? Remembering that we don't have all the information is humbling. And it helps change our perspective to remember God knows best. And it also teaches us that his delays do not contradict his love. He loves us as fully and as truly when he comes to our rescue immediately as when he waits. Because God's delays are not final. We pray that his will come in his own time and in his own way. And no doubt that will frequently be later than we would have chosen. We view a delay in help often as cruel. If you could help and you have the ability to help, why don't you help right now? From his divine perspective, however, God recognizes right now is not always the best time to help, because God is the best timekeeper. He created time and he's never late for his appointments. Again, speaking Dork in multiple languages, it reminds me of Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. When Frodo meets him on the way to the birthday party, and Frodo says, Gandalf, you're late. And Gandalf kind of gives him a scowl and says, a wizard always arrives exactly when he chooses. And then they laugh because Gandalf's just giving him a hard time, but it's that idea, I know more than you. You can't really understand what I'm doing. And that's part of our relationship with God. God arrives exactly when he needs to bring God the most glory, to you the most good, and to invite the lost. And when we're sitting in that delay, when we're sitting in that hurt, are we willing to offer our pain, our tension, our uncomfortableness to God? Are we willing to submit to his plan, trusting that he will bring glory to himself and good to his children and an invitation to the world? Will we be like Jesus, offering himself on the cross? What will we do when our expectations of how God should act not match how God actually acts, when our expectations are not met? And we see a couple of examples of this in our story, starting with the disciples in verse 7. Finally, Jesus said to his disciples, let's go back to Judea. But his disciples objected. Rabbi, they said, only a few days ago, the people in Judea were trying to stone you. Are you going there again? Notice the disciples are trying to avoid the pain. Your plan is not matching with mine. Why would we possibly go into a dangerous situation? Why would we possibly go into more hurt? We're supposed to avoid pain, especially the deadly kind. Thank you very much. And Jesus replied in verse 9, there are 12 hours of daylight every day. During the day, people can walk safely. They can see because they have the light of the world. But at night, there is danger of stumbling because they have no light. Here's that light and darkness duality we mentioned last week that John uses. Who is the light of the world? If you think back to the Sermon on the Mount, we are. But we are only the light because we have Jesus. He is the true light, which we only reflect. When we are with Jesus, no matter how we feel, no matter what we're going through, we are always safe. But we often don't feel that way. Our feelings and our reality is not matching up. And the disciples had this problem. They were with Jesus in the flesh, and they still didn't feel that way. As John states at the end, blessed are those who understand even though they have not seen. Blessed are us when we can line our emotions up with the fact that even though I don't see Jesus standing here next to me, he is with me. The world is in danger because they're walking in darkness. They need the light of Jesus reflected to them by us so that light can break through and we can show them how to come to safety. So Jesus says to them in verse 11, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now I will go and wake him up. And the disciples said, Lord, if he is sleeping, he will soon get better. Because they thought Jesus meant Lazarus was simply sleeping, but Jesus meant Lazarus had died. So he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now you will really believe. Come, let's go see. I mean, from our pain avoidance perspective, this comes across as cruel and careless. How can you be glad that your beloved friend died? Jesus here is modeling the perspective that we should have, that we should trust that God is working for good, that God is going to receive glory through this, that our faith is going to be grown. In verse 16, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let's go too and die with Jesus. I can almost see the overly dramatic fashion he would say this. I could picture almost like the, woe is me. All right, fine. We'll walk to our deaths. Because despite the promise that this was going to bring glory to God, their response was still sadness, despondency, maybe even depression and desperation. Despite having the light with them, they could not see. This actually reminds me of the Three Stooges. Curly shouting out, I'm blind, and Moe and Larry rushing over, what's wrong? Oh, my eyes were closed. I mean, here they are standing in the light and still not seeing. How often do we have the same reaction? I mean, God, your word promises that you will work all things for good for those who love God and are called according to your purpose, but I just can't see how. I mean, right now I hurt too much. My eyes are closed to your glory because of the pain that I'm feeling. My eyes are closed to the good that you're trying to do. Right now, Lord, I'm standing here blind. As with many people today, human problems often crowd out our sense of the divine. And as a result, hopelessness can reign, where joy and hope should reign, even in the presence of God's people. Because while this blindness isn't right, it is normal. Everybody walks through darkness. We need help to see. We need help from each other. We need encouragement to open our eyes and see what God is doing through the trouble in our lives. And it's even harder because there's an enemy trying to convince you to keep your eyes closed, that you're not really blind, you're just seeing God as he really is. I mean, how dare you doubt? Where's your faith? You must not love God enough, or he would explain it better to you. He would act sooner if you had more faith. He would love you more if you loved him more. It's just better to keep your eyes closed. It's better not to think about it. And that's a lie. God's delay, God's timing, God's actions will bring him glory, will grow your faith, and will invite others to himself through you. Just open your eyes. Ask God to help you see the light, because despite the despondency of the disciples, they still went with him. They were still obedient. They had just enough of a peek at Jesus as they peeked through their closed eyelids to reach out a hand to touch him and to follow him, even though they disagreed with his plan, even though they didn't understand his plan. And even if you can't see, will you be obedient to follow until you do? Will you let a friend in Christ take you by the hand and lead you closer? In verse 17, when Jesus arrived at Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. A common belief at this time was that the soul would hang around for 3 days. So 4 days meant they were really dead. Jews would actually return to the tomb after the third day, to make sure the person was really dead. Which makes me wonder, how many times did they show up on the second day and somebody was alive and they went, oops, for this to become a normal practice? With the fourth day, the possibility of the excuse he wasn't really dead was removed. This resurrection that's about to happen could only be done by the power of God, that it is a sign and wonder. Verse 18, it tells us that Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem. This mention is to really heighten that tension. This would be like hearing the da-dum in the story. Da-dum. We're in the presence of danger. We're in the presence of death. Jesus has taken this huge risk by coming so close to the capital. The disciples were right to be concerned. They returned to the battlefield. They approached enemy HQ. And if Lazarus is dead, why are we taking this risk? I mean, what could you possibly do? I could hear these thoughts running through their minds. In verse 19, many of the people had come to console Martha and Mary in their loss. But when Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. And Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been there, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask. I tried to read that as straight as possible because it's impossible to determine tone. I mean, I could see Martha saying this with a snide comment. Lord, if only you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Okay, but even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask. How often has that been our approach? You did it wrong and I'm angry, but I know technically you're the God of the universe, so okay.
Fix it.
Yeah, fix it. You know, I could also see it being a genuine tone of regret and faith. Lord, if only you had been here. I'm heartbroken. My brother wouldn't have died, but I know God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus does not condemn her right now. In fact, he's going to encourage her and correct her. And later on in the story, we're going to see his frustration come out. So I don't think that there was a rebuke here. I take the silence about his frustration to mean that's not what Jesus was feeling. I think Martha is just genuinely heartbroken right now. And so Jesus tells her straight up, your brother will rise again. And we see Martha viewed this as preacher talk. Yes, he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day. Even though he said it clearly, she missed it. And how often do we miss it? How often do we assume we know what God is saying? That we are so focused on our own struggle, on our own problem, that we are so stuck in our own rut that we miss what God is actually telling us. Every time. Lisa shared a fun story this week. You should ask her about getting her car inspected. If you'd like to hear a story this week about how I just missed what God was saying, and he kept telling me. You know, this is part of God's character, that he's going to do something to get our attention, that he will bring us grace upon grace, blessing upon blessing, reminder upon reminder, that he leaves the 99 and he goes after the one, that he keeps trying despite our failures. And that's an essential part of his timing, is that he keeps chasing us. In verse 25, Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha? This is one of the great I am statements. And we'll study these more in depth as we continue through the gospel. We see that here one of John's themes, this duality of life and death. Because again, the idea of life is not just physical, but spiritual. Because we all know many people that have believed in Jesus and have died their physical death. That's where Lazarus is at right now. The life that Jesus is talking about is this fuller life that we will all experience at the resurrection, but it's this filled, full spiritual life that we will always be in the presence of God. We will always be in presence of Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Jesus' concern here is to divert Martha's focus from this abstract belief, that we know one day it's all going to work out, to this personalized belief that no, it's going to work out right now. It's going to work out. You can have a filled, full life right now. But it's probably going to require me to help you change your perspective. Because how often do we look ahead and so we miss what God is doing right now? Lord, life's just too hard right now. So I just accept you're not bringing deliverance right now. I just have to hope for heaven. I have to hope that when I get through school, things will get better. I have to hope that when I get through this next doctor's appointment, things will get better. I have to hope when I get to that next promotion, when I get to. And Lord, you're bringing deliverance, but you're bringing it later. You're not bringing it now. And why do we accept that? Why do we settle? And I think it comes from all the times where we felt disappointed because God did not answer our prayers the way we expected and when we expected. We did not get healed. We still lost the job. Our loved one still died. God obviously didn't come through. Yes, he did. God came through. It's just not the way that we wanted. And preaching this is hard because it sounds like preacher talk. Like that sophistry, like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I'm trying to trick you into believing that God still came through even when it feels like he didn't. But again, it's about that perspective. It's about the perspective Jesus is showing about the same question Jesus poses to Martha. Do you believe this? Do you believe that I am working all things for my glory, for your good, and to invite the world into our family? Do you believe that God has your best interest at heart? And I'll tell you, that is a hard thing to do. That takes submission. That takes faith. That takes living your life and choosing the joy of the Lord, even in terrible circumstances. You know, this week I had heard the story of one of the pastors that we work with internationally, that he had been accused of being a drunkard and wrecking his motorcycle while driving drunk. And the truth is that he was beaten to death, that he was martyred for his faith in Jesus. And on this call, I was asked to pray with some of these pastors, and I was just at a loss for words. Lord, I can't imagine how this brutal death is going to bring you glory and bring about good. I have no idea how it's going to happen. And this is where the trust comes in, where the faith comes in. This is where the decision to trust, of putting my faith in action, comes in. Jesus asked Martha, do you believe this? And we see her answer in verse 27. She had the same choice. Yes, Lord, I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. So then she returned to Mary. She called Mary aside from the mourners and told her, the teacher is here and wants to see you. So Mary immediately went to him. I mean, Martha not only said yes, she went and got somebody else to come and see Jesus. That's the kind of person I want to be. I mean, that is the mark of a mature Christian, the right perspective that I don't get it, but I'm still going to trust, I'm still going to follow, and I'm still going to share. In verse 30, Jesus had stayed outside the village, the place where Martha met him. And then when the people who were at the house consoling Mary saw her leave so hastily, they assumed she was going to Lazarus' grave to weep, so they followed her there. And when Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. The same thing Martha said. I mean, how often do we share struggles with each other? We have the same problems. And so often God brings someone else with the exact same circumstance into your life. Someone who can empathize. Sometimes they can lead you because they've already been through it and come out the other side. Sometimes they can just sit with you and support you. And sometimes you get to lead them. God is going to bring you people that are going through what you've already gone through so that you can help them. We get to show the love of Jesus to others, to show God's glory, to be the support. Because this is God showing his glory, showing his love. He most often does it through his body, through the church, through you. Don't miss it. Have your eyes open. Be looking for them. Don't explain it away if this is just a coincidence. Who would have thought I'd meet more people like this? You know, Terry so often has this has told me she's met so many people that are struggling with the same thing she has. Who would have thought there are that many people in the world? There's not. God just keeps bringing her to them so she can help. Verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. And this is the hardest part of the passage. This word is translated later on as anger. Some versions, deeply troubled or moved by the deepest emotions, visibly distressed. It's a word that expresses anger and frustration and exasperation of strong emotions bubbling up to the surface. This word is used in a different spot to describe a pool bubbling up when the waters were stirred. It's a word used to describe a horse snorting. We don't really have a word like that. And so the best word that I can come up with is exasperation, where you see that frustration, you see that deep emotion. And I think we get there from verse 35 when it says Jesus wept. We see the depth of his emotion on full display. Why did he weep? And some people will say, well, they think it's because he lost his friend, but I don't think that's it. After just encouraging Mary and Martha that your brother is going to rise again, that I'm the resurrection and the life, I don't think he's sad that his friend has died. I think that he looks at Mary and Martha and his disciples and they don't get it. Though he's told them directly, though he's standing with them, he's looking at these mourners that represent the Jewish people that don't get it. In verse 36, it says, see how much he loved him. He healed a blind man, but he couldn't keep Lazarus from dying, expecting more. I think he's also affected by the nearness of Jerusalem, knowing that just a few days from now, he was going to be facing death. All of this just welling up inside him, and these tears coming out, knowing that through this death, it's foreshadowing his death. That through the cross, he will bring glory to himself, that he will bring good to those who love him and an invitation to the lost, even knowing that just like now, many will reject him. They'll ridicule him and they'll condemn him for not doing enough. The cross is not enough. You should do more for me. You should help me more. In verse 38, Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. "Roll the stone aside," Jesus said. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested, "Lord, he's been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible." And Jesus responded, "Didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe?" I think this is his exasperation that we're seeing. How many times have I frustrated Jesus in the same way? How many times has he looked at me and thought, haven't I already given you the answer? Please change your perspective. Please walk with me. And I'm so grateful for what he does next. I'm so grateful that he doesn't leave me stuck, that he doesn't leave Martha stuck. Instead, they rolled the stone aside, and Jesus looked up to heaven and said, "Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me, but I say it out loud for the sake of all these people standing here so that they will believe you sent me." Despite our confusion, sometimes our rejection, God keeps showing up, keeps speaking in ways that we'll understand. He keeps inviting. He's continuing to pursue, just like he's continuing to pursue you. And so Jesus shouted, "Lazarus, come out." And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a headcloth. And Jesus told them, "Unwrap him and let him go." And many of the people who were with Mary believed in Jesus when they saw this happen. That's it? I mean, this seems almost anticlimactic. I mean, didn't this cause like a huge revival? Where are the changed lives? Why aren't thousands coming to Jesus, coming to faith right now? The signs and wonders are not the point of the gospel. Our reaction to them is. How are you going to respond? And we see both responses here. We see some that believe, but in verse 46, some went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the leading priests and Pharisees called the high council together. What are we going to do? This man can certainly perform signs and miracles. Notice there's no doubt that he's doing miracles. If we allow him to go on like this, soon everyone will believe in him. Then the Roman army will come and destroy both our temple and our nation. What a human response. Well, if we let this keep going, it's going to mess up our lives. I don't want anyone to change my life. I mean, I have wealth, I have power, I have comfort. Okay, well, maybe not a lot of any of those things, but I have enough that I want to protect what's mine, and I don't want anybody else to mess it up. I don't want God to mess it up. I don't want my government to mess it up. I don't want a church to mess it up. I don't need anybody doing that. Just leave me alone. Just give me what I want when I ask for it, when I want it. They rejected Jesus' invitation to believe in greater things. Verse 49, Caiaphas, who was high priest at the time, said, "You don't know what you're talking about. You don't realize that it's better for you that one man should die for the people than for the whole nation to be destroyed." And he did not say this on his own as high priest. At that time, he was led to prophesy that Jesus would die for the entire nation. And not only for that nation, but to bring together and unite all the children of God. I wish we got more glimpses behind the scenes like this. I mean, here we get to see how God is using the decisions of people to bring him glory. If I was standing in the room, I wouldn't get that. When I'm standing in the room with a hurting loved one, Lord, could you give me the glimpse behind the scene? What we see here is that God doesn't waste any hurt. He uses my struggles to help me grow. From that time on, the Jewish leaders began to plot Jesus' death. He used their sinful desires as an earthly mechanism that led to Christ to the cross and brought about the salvation of the world. Their rejection of Jesus was so complete, they wanted to completely destroy and ruin him. And how often do we see that today? Go spend a little time on social media. People are content just to disagree, but we got to tear down, we got to burn it to the ground, we got to scorch the earth so that nothing can be rebuilt. Yet God will even use those attitudes for his glory, for our good, and to invite them into the world. As a result of this, Jesus stopped his public ministry among the people and left Jerusalem. He went to a place near the wilderness, to the village of Ephraim, and stayed there with his disciples. And now it was time for the Jewish Passover celebration, and many people from all over the country arrived in Jerusalem several days early so they could go through the purification ceremony before Passover began. They kept looking for Jesus, but as they stood around in the temple, they said to each other, "What do you think? He won't come for Passover, will he?" Meanwhile, the leading priests and Pharisees had publicly ordered that anyone seeing Jesus must report it immediately so they could arrest him. We see that the battle lines have been drawn. You have faithful followers. You have a rebellious world trying to destroy him, and we have just curious onlookers. And these battle lines have continued to today. Where are you standing? Are you a faithful follower trusting that God is working all things for your good? Are you trusting in that you can't understand and imagine how God is going to bring himself glory? Or are you a rebel? Are you rejecting God's ability to bring good and glory? Or maybe you're standing on the sidelines right now as a curious onlooker. Maybe you're exhausted and need to rest. Maybe you're not sure. You're filled with doubt. Maybe you're seeking to try to understand. And I want you to know that no matter where you are, God has an invitation for you. God invites you to come and see, to open your eyes, to see how God is showing his love for you. That he is inviting you to open others' eyes so that they can see all the ways God is loving them. The song about greater vision that I was talking about earlier is called My Name is Lazarus. They pictured Lazarus as the fourth man carrying the paralytic and tearing the roof off the house. The others helping carry the paralytic despite the signs and wonders. They were still doubting. They were still hesitant. Can God really help everyone? Does God really love everyone? And then the song Lazarus declares that my name is Lazarus. I will testify. My name is Lazarus, and it feels good to be alive. If you think your problem is too big for him to solve, take it from the one who's heard the mighty voice of God. I am a living testimony of his death-defying touch. Because my name is Michael. And my name is Troy. And my name is John. And my name is Lois. Each of you have experienced the death-defying touch of Jesus. Will you testify? Will you bring God glory, sharing the things that he has done for you? And will you invite others to experience God's goodness? You don't have to be stuck in darkness. You don't have to be stuck alone. In this room alone, you are surrounded by people who love you and want to help you. If you're online, you can just comment or email me or text me, and I will reach out to you. Testify this week. Tell your story. Stir one another up to love and good works so that they can live the filled, full life Jesus has planned for them right now. My prayer today is that this resurrection story and the stories of the people in this room will open our eyes to see how God is bringing you blessing upon blessing through your struggles. If you'll stand with me, we'll pray as God has taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.